doing very well. Excited for tomorrow. There's one day left until Blood and Guts, and kind of the anxiety and the build up for it. One day, and then it's there and it's done, and all my energy and focus is going into that. But other than that, I'm very good. Thank you. How about
Oh,
yourself?
I'm good. I'm really excited too, and even a little anxious, and I'm not even going to be in the match. But for you, you are, and how do you prepare for such a violent match and one that is a first in AEW?
Um, Violence wise, professional wrestling in general is a very physically demanding endeavor. It's very painful even to this day. If I stopped wrestling tomorrow, I would have pain for the rest of my life in some way, shape, or form from all the, you know, taxation I put my body through for the past almost 20 years. For a match like this specifically, I don't know when I'm going to be in the match.
Mhm.
That's going to be up to Tully and how he kind of strategizes everything. But enough gas in the tank to go 20, 30, 40 plus minutes if need be in order to try and secure your team to win. So that is first and foremost in a match like this. I think the expectations, like you were talking about, AEW has a track record of putting on some very high octane, incredible matches. This will be no different. The only thing that will be different in this match is that this is a fight
Mhm.
between two sides. It's not going to be exactly the professional wrestling you might be accustomed to seeing every week or every Wednesday night. This is going to be about brutality, not exactly flipping around. This is going to be a real fight.
Mhm. For you, how much does it mean to you, and what kind of extra pressure do you feel taking part in a match that, whatever happens, will make AEW history as the first Blood and Guts?
So for me personally, that's pretty cool. Nowadays in wrestling, it's very hard to be a part of a first in anything because everything's been done. I tell some of my young students this in wrestling, and they go, "Oh, I want to come up with a new move." I was like, "Well, there's probably somebody overseas doing the exact move that you're trying to come up with right now. So I mean, there's not many firsts anymore. So now finally, the first ever Blood and Guts match in AEW. That's really cool to be a part of, not only because it's a first time ever, but as someone who's been around as long as I have and other guys in the match that have 10, 15 years under their belt, it's a chance for us to kind of, tip our hat to history, to the guys that came before us that have competed in different kinds of match, kind of like this one. So
Mhm.
that's really cool. In terms of pressure, the pressure to perform is always there. You know that the eyes are going to be on you. You know how big the buzz is. And you can probably get a feel for it too just by looking online alone. There's a lot of anticipation for this match. So if anybody thinks that that's lost on us at all in terms of what we know, what we have to do in terms of delivering, it's not. So the pressure is there, but you know what I mean? That's why you work for one of the biggest companies in the world. You accept that pressure that comes with the territory, and you're going to do everything you can to deliver.
Mhm. Well, you spoke there about the history. So, for wrestling fans that have seen War Games matches, how will Blood and Guts be different?
So I get asked this question on a few other interviews. Excuse me. So I can only give the same answer in terms of explaining it the best way possible.
Mhm.
This match will be different because, as I said before, in terms of professional wrestling, if you're tuning in to watch Blood and Guts to see some nice sequences and you're looking to see some flips and you're looking to see some great deal of showmanship, uh, this is not the match to watch for that. This is a match that is designed by violence and it is backed up by brutality. That is the best way I can put it. There are guys in this match. I've said it before in interviews, and no one's really given me trouble or told me not to say it, so I'll say it here as well. There's guys in this match that legitimately don't like each other.
Mhm.
Just behind the scenes stuff, everybody, some people butt heads, and it's just guys don't like each other. So you add that into an already combustible element that is two rings inside of a giant steel cage, and anything can kind of happen. So when there's anytime there's more than two guys or three guys in a ring, you got to keep your head on a swivel.
Mhm.
Combat that with guys looking to kind of make a name for themselves in a match like this. You have all the elements to have a very, very violent match. So in terms of brutality, that is what you are going to see. violence.
So you said there about guys not liking each other, and not to make any assumptions, but this last week on Dynamite, we saw the promos, and you and Sammy went at it, and the promo that you cut towards each other, like it got pretty personal, and a lot of them have in this feud between the Inner Circle and the Pinnacle. So for you, like, how important do you think it is when you're building such a serious match to really cut deep when you're out there doing the promos against each other?
So the idea is, I'm a firm believer that honesty is always the best policy.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, wrestling audiences, it's very hard to pull one over their eyes, so to speak. I don't believe in fooling them. I believe in telling them the truth. I haven't had many opportunities to speak in AEW. Finally, I have. So when I get a chance to speak, good, bad, or indifferent, I'm going to tell the truth. So what I said to Sammy was very true, because he doesn't have the experience that I have. He hasn't known Jericho as long as I have. I know what that guy's all about. No one loves Chris Jericho more than Chris Jericho. And guys like Sammy, who doesn't have that much experience, doesn't realize that yet. So that, as much as people say that I was getting personal, I was actually just trying to help. I was giving him a heads up. I was telling him exactly what's going to happen tomorrow night on Dynamite at Blood and Guts. I'm going to hurt him. If he decides to walk in there with Jericho and be on that team and try and take me and my guys down, it's just not going to happen like that. Sammy said what he said. He said what he felt. But as I said before, Sammy doesn't have the experience. He has no idea what I've been through. He hasn't walked a mile in my shoes. He probably couldn't walk a mile in my shoes. So what you heard from me and Sammy, what you heard from MJF and Chris, what you heard from FTR and PMP, a lot of it is just a lot of guys getting things off their chest. And when you're out there in that scenario and the cameras are on you, you don't know what the other guy's going to say. Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean by some guys butt heads. There's not a lot of communication between the Inner Circle and the Pinnacle. So it's kind of going to be, you're going to be thrown in the fire. I'm going to say what I'm going to say. You're going to say what you're going to say. And when match time comes, we'll settle and square up however we need to.
Mm-hmm. So this Blood and Guts match, it's other than when we saw Jericho and it's really the first time you guys are meeting in the ring. So how did you feel about starting off the feud with such a big money match? And did you have any reservations about going with Blood and Guts first?
So I've seen some of the conversation or critiques, whatever you want to call them, in terms of people saying, why are we getting such a big match out of the gate already? Mm-hmm. Could we have started with a 5-on-5 10-man tag match? Sure. But if you look at what's happened in the past month to 5 weeks, things have gotten very heated very quickly. Now, I've given you the reason why. Behind the scenes, guys don't get along. They don't like each other. So things have kind of been amped up to a point where no other match is fitting other than Blood and Guts. It just wouldn't suffice. So on the flip side of that, our audience, depending on how tomorrow night goes, they have no idea where things are going to go down the road. That's why the audience is the audience, and that's why people who work for AEW wrestle and perform for AEW. We can kind of see a little further down the road than you can. So who knows how heated this rivalry is going to get? Who knows how much bigger this rivalry is going to get? If Blood and Guts is the first match out of the gate in this feud, imagine what the possibilities could be. Imagine what the audience could possibly get. That's massive. We're very aware of that. Tony Khan is very aware of that. And at the end of the day, it's about delivering. So there's no other match except Blood and Guts that is fitting for this angle, for this battle to find out who the greatest faction in AEW is. There's a lot of factions, as you know. Mm-hmm. Inner Circle's been on top for too long. And we're the only crew that has stepped up in a way that we have stepped up. And tomorrow night, we finish them.
Mm-hmm. So how did you, being a part of the Pinnacle, come about? And what was kind of your reaction to the idea of going into a faction?
The conversations first started with me and MJF when we were sitting at ringside. This was kind of just after the pandemic had hit and the world kind of shut down for a minute. But we were sitting at ringside and we were kind of taking our bets on matches and messing around with some cash. And the idea started there.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of said, well, what if we see a lot of these guys coming out here week after week and we are better than them? We can see it. We know it. All we need is a good group of guys to back us up. So when things go a little south backstage, we have some numbers on our side. The rumblings of FTR becoming available were getting more and more closer.
Mm-hmm.
So it was about not necessarily putting together a faction, but if we were, who were the guys? It was the key elements in terms of who we were going to piece together. You have Wardlow and Max, you have FTR, and now you have myself and Tully Blanchard. Like, it's almost a no-brainer. So when all those pieces fell into place, I jumped all over it. Max jumped all over it. FTR jumped all over it. Tully said, let's do this because, no one has better experience in terms of factions than Tully Blanchard. So he put all the right pieces in place. He put all the right guys together. He put the conversation down and everybody got on board. I personally love the idea. As if you follow my AEW career, I was kind of under the radar. I was winning matches time after time. My record was fantastic. I haven't lost a match in almost a year. But now it just took timing. It took patience, and it took the right time to step in the ring with the right group of guys. And you saw what happened to the inner circle once that moment came upon us.
Yeah. Well, before I get to that moment, then we saw you placing these bets with MJF. Was there anything, like, what made you end up sitting there with MJF? Had you guys connected before, or what was it? I mean, he's not someone I'd probably choose to be placing bets with. So how did you even end up in the setting that you were talking about doing something together?
I don't like many people, and Max doesn't like many people as well. He's got money. He has legitimate money. And so do I. I've been in the industry for quite some time. Ringside, and we're watching all these other guys. And instead of watching these other guys, we just decided, let's place some bets. Let's see if we can make a little bit of money. And we kind of just bounced off each other in terms of interaction. He was fun to talk to. You know what I mean? MJF is all about himself. Shawn Spears is all about himself. When you put two guys like that in the middle of a conversation, it could probably be pretty fun. And we had a great time. So I think that's where our chemistry first started. We kind of looked at each other and went, this could be fun on a regular basis. You know what I mean? But how can we do things differently? How can we stand out a little bit more? How can we, do this that hasn't been done in wrestling in quite some time? So he said, well, let's put a plan in place. Let's put a long-term plan in place. And it all started then. And you look to almost a year later, when that plan was finally executed, it worked to perfection. So our chemistry was always there from the beginning. Max is a big time up and coming. He's the guy who's already a star, but he doesn't have a ceiling. The sky's the limit for him. And for a guy like me, I bring a great deal of experience to the table for Max. So anything that he lacks in experience, myself, FTR, Tully Blanchard can make up for. So it's a perfectly well-oiled machine. And that's why the Pinnacle is going to be as successful as it will be going forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've said there how much experience you have. You're having 20 years experience, and MJF has a lot fewer years under his belt. But is there anything that you can say that he's taught you and that you have taught him from your time together?
I think collectively, the one thing that Pinnacle shares, and I'm not trying to jump around your question there, the common theme throughout the Pinnacle is like they're so diehard passionate about the industry. So there are some guys that can go home after, a set of TV tapings or whatnot, and they can turn it off and they can spend time with their family and they can go on vacation, or they can do whatever else they want to do in their life. They're able to shut off wrestling. Every man in the Pinnacle cannot shut this off. We are in constant communication in group text. I'll get a text at 3:00 in the morning, say, hey, what do you guys think about this? And this is a constant, I equate it to a sickness where this is 24/7, 7 days a week, you know what I mean? It's every day, it's all day. And when you can put 6 guys together that are the exact same way, that feel the exact same way about this group and this opportunity going forward in AEW, you have a recipe for success. how many years MJF has or how many years I have. It's a collective unit. So when I'm feeling like a little maybe down, you know what I mean? I see how passionate MJF is. So I go, it kind of perks me up and I'm like, damn, he's right. You know what I mean? If Max is feeling down or Wardlow's kind of like, you know what I mean? We see FTR and they're like, let's go, boys. Let's tighten this up. Let's get this going. And we go, yeah, you're right. And everybody just kind of lifts each other up. So when you have, you know, all those guys that are a beautiful tide, it's going to raise that ship. So that's the beautiful thing about the Pinnacle. I think we all feed off each other and we all kind of keep each other focused on that top level.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier that you felt a little bit under the radar in AEW. So how hard has it been to stand out in AEW? And do you think it's going to be harder to stand out then within a faction, since you are shoulder to shoulder with an MJF and an FTR and a Wardlow?
So I think talent has to be realistic about their position within companies. AEW has a lot of talent, and we've only been in existence for, I think, coming up on 2 years, which is very, very youthful in the world of professional wrestling. Mm-hmm. Someone like me, if you're a wrestling fan and you have been a wrestling fan for an extended period of time of either AEW or WWE, you know who I am. You've heard my name, you've seen my face somewhere. You don't really have to reintroduce me to a worldwide audience. I'm television ready. I'm a television star. I can wrestle on television at any time and be just fine. A lot of talent in AEW that we are building for towards the future, guys like MJF, your Darby Allins, your Jungle Boys. We have to introduce these guys to a worldwide audience so that they can become worldwide stars. So there has to be time devoted into doing that. If I'm constantly on TV, someone who already has television experience, someone who people already know who they are, we are taking time away from young talent. Mm-hmm. Now, you're not going to hear many guys like me say that in this industry because, as I mentioned before, there's so many egos. I'm a firm believer in the future of this business that has given me so much. So I'm all about promoting young and up and coming talent. So if I have to kind of float underneath the radar while the company is doing that, I'm going to do whatever I can to help the company succeed in doing so. In terms of standing out in a faction, no, I don't think that's going to be very difficult, because when you have a collective mindset where FTR is FTR, Shawn is Wardlow, MJF is MJF, we all have individual goals and we all have individual conquests that we are kind of setting out to capitalize on. But at the end of the day, the idea of collectively being successful is the foundation. That is the ultimate. So when we all come together, we all have the same goals. Separately, we all have individual goals. So, you know, would it be crazy to think that at some point in time, MJF could hold the AEW World Heavyweight Championship? Shawn Spears could hold the TNT Championship. FTR could once again become World Tag Team Championships. Wardlow, what about the FTW Championship? Like, it's very, very possible. And those thoughts have crossed our minds. And collectively, we want the Pinnacle to succeed first, however way that's possible. So I don't think it's going to be hard to stand out in a faction. I think we're all just going to be above and beyond, and that's going to be shown as time goes on.
So a couple of weeks ago, we saw you in the ring with Mike Tyson, and you took some shots there. What was it like being in the ring with him and taking that from Tyson?
So, I mean, I don't need to sell you on how intimidating Mike Tyson can be. Mm-hmm. When you see that guy kind of walking out by himself, I can't imagine what some of his former opponents have seen. You know what I mean? They saw the same thing during the golden era of Mike Tyson. Look, I'm going to point out the fact that I took many shots from Mike Tyson, and I'm still breathing. Okay, I like to think that I lasted much longer than some of his former opponents, hands down. So, did I stand toe to toe with Mike Tyson? Absolutely. Did I fight Mike Tyson? Absolutely. So, Iron Mike, if you're listening, if you ever catch on to this, you're welcome to come back to AEW anytime. After we're done with the Inner Circle, pal, Iron Mike's next on the list.
And I also wanted to ask you about, like, months and months ago, we saw you were looking for a tag partner. Is there anything there that would have happened that didn't, that you were thinking about? And are you glad you didn't get one? Now you've ended up in the Pinnacle.
So the search for Spears was a legitimate thing.
Hmm.
That was something that was a brainchild, and it was a great way for AEW to see talent when we were traveling to different cities and things like that. It was to give talent, independent talent, an opportunity to be seen, essentially. So I thought it was a great idea. Of course, when the pandemic hit and everything kind of shut down, that had to obviously go away. We couldn't travel very much. I thought the idea was pretty good. I also think that um, had anything continued on, or had I found a tag partner, then I might not have been in the position to be in the Pinnacle.
Hmm.
Because I think a couple weeks after that stopped, Max and I were sitting at ringside and we started having a conversation. So I think it was a blessing in disguise. I thought it was something to do at the time.
Hmm.
So, but overall, yes, I'm 100% glad I didn't find a tag partner, because now I have five guys on my side and we are head and shoulders above everybody else in AEW. And right now, with the Inner Circle, this is the hottest angle in professional wrestling today. So um, I think it was a blessing in disguise to have the search for Spears come to an abrupt halt.
Hmm. And recently we saw a lot of superstars released from WWE, and you've been in the position of leaving there. What is the kind of advice that you would give to someone in that position, as far as moving on and kind of reinventing yourself wherever any of these people do end up?
Well, it is difficult. Excuse me. I did leave my second time in WWE. My first time I was released, so I do know the feeling. I do know exactly what it is like. And when you love something so much, when this is all you wanted to do since a very young age, it can be heartbreaking. You feel like your world has come to an end, and then everything starts to float through your mind. If you're here from another country, like, you know what I mean? Now, what's your status? Do I have to go all the way back home? Like, there's a million things that come into play, and essentially, you have 3 months to figure your whole life out. Um, but at the same time, good people will always land on their feet. The initial shock kind of wears off after a few days, and you kind of collect your thoughts. And if you are able to kind of step back for a second and now see the possibilities that are out there, the longer you're in this industry, the easier it is to see. So if you take that moment, take a step back, and kind of look around, you'll realize that things aren't all that bad. Some of these things happen for a reason, and sometimes those reasons are good. And so for some of the talent that got released recently, as surprised as I was, as well as a lot of other people were, those talents, especially a few of them, are going to be just fine. It all really depends on what they want to do. So for guys like Samoa Joe, for ladies like Cassie Lee and Jess McKay, uber talented, and I'm not just being biased.
Yeah.
They just have so much talent that the world is kind of like, they already have people knocking on their door. They get
Mhm.
messages and calls almost every day. So I know that when I left recently, WWE, my opportunities expanded massively. And so if they expanded that much for me, they're only going to go over the top and be as big and crazy as it is for them. So I'm actually excited to see what's going to happen for those people. But good things happen to good people, and the good people will always land on their feet. So I'm excited to see what everybody's going to do following this up, and I have no doubt they'll do some incredible things for sure.
Absolutely. And finally, you had said before about feeling a little under the radar. You're now in this big spot in the Pinnacle. Once tomorrow night's match is over, Blood and Guts, what do you want people to be saying about Shawn Spears?
Mm. I think my story's always been, if anybody really truly knows it, it's been it's all about, like, fighting forward. I've always had to keep pushing, keep fighting. Every time I've been pushed down, I've always found a way to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And I believe that that is massively important, not just in wrestling or a job, but in life. Like, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Control what you can control. I think after tomorrow night, I want people to believe that I belong, that that fits, that I'm a guy that belongs in there. with a Chris Jericho. I'm a guy that belongs in there with Sammy. I'm a guy that belongs in there with Tully and FTR. I fit. The problem is that we have a lot of damage to correct image-wise, because there's certain things that are out of my control, which is the booking and all those, external things. So we have some making up to do, and I think the Pinnacle is a perfect place for me to do that. So being in this position is a good opportunity for me to do that. So I either have to rise to the occasion, or I crumble, fold, and fade away. I've never been the type to crumble and fold and fade away. So just like everything else, I'm going to go into this match tomorrow night. I'm going to push through, and then whatever comes after that, I'm going to consistently push through. That's been my career for almost 20 years. I believe in patience, and I think patience is finally paying off. So after tomorrow night, after Blood and Guts, the thing I want people to take away, two very, very important things. One, the Pinnacle is the top faction in AEW and professional wrestling, and Shawn Spears is exactly where he needs to be.